guys, welcome back to another episode of eLEXYfy, the place for fashion podcast. I am your host, Lexi Silverstein. You'll never believe who I have on this week's episode of eLEXYfy, the place for fashion podcast. She's a sustainable content creator and environmentalist. How's it going, Lauren?
So good. So stoked to be here today. Thank you for having me.
Oh my goodness, of course. Thank you for coming on today. So for those who don't know who you are, tell us a little bit about yourself.
I'm Lauren Ferree. I just got married. I haven't changed my name yet. So I guess I'm like soaking up Ferree while I can. I love the idea of having a shared last name. Like we're a team, we have the same last name, but I haven't changed it yet. So I will be Lauren Bash, but I go by Lauren on all the things. Like you said, I'm a sustainability content creator. I live down in Orange County in Costa Mesa. This year was the year I got engaged. I got married. I got a dog. It's been a big year.
Oh my gosh, that is so exciting. Congratulations. Well, we're actually going to get talking about your wedding, but a little later on. First, I want to find out how you really got into sustainability.
Totally. So it's actually kind of fitting because I just logged off a town hall with the Surfrider Foundation, which is a environmental NGO in the US, all about protecting the world's oceans and beaches. And so I'm sure you saw, but we had a pretty bad oil spill down south, like right here in my backyard.
Right.
And so the town hall was just to share the updates and how we're keeping these polluters accountable and the advocacy to essentially combat offshore oil drilling. Anyways, all of that to say, it was offshore oil drilling that plugged me into the climate space. This was 5 years ago when in the 2016 presidential election, when offshore drilling became a hot topic and all of these permits off the coast of LA were going to be sold to oil drilling. And like I said, I'm a kid from LA. I was like, hell no, literally Googled how to stop offshore drilling in Los Angeles. Right. And then that's how I found the Surfrider Foundation. And I've been part of this NGO for 5 years. And I should give credit where credit's due too. My mom is a massive environmentalist and always kind of has been, but never, it wasn't like because sustainability was trending or anything. I think it's just the way she was raised and she has an awesome connection with nature's ecosystems. And anyways, so I plugged in about 5 years ago, specifically through the avenue of ocean conservation and offshore oil drilling.
Wow, that's amazing. And that's amazing that you just, I know you mentioned that you were going to a town hall meeting, but that is seriously amazing. And I love just seeing people like going out there and really like being like, this is something I care about. And this is something that I need to advocate for. And I just absolutely love that you are one of those people.
Oh, well, thank you.
Of course. So how did you get into like content creation and kind of sharing your love of sustainability with other people on social media?
Kind of a funny story. So I did study TV and film in undergrad. And I think my interest as a child was always about storytelling. And I did theater like a lot of kids did. And it's just, I've always loved storytelling. And so got a degree in TV and film and then started working in-house, like a massive company creating short form video content for them. And then as this is, 5 years ago, I was like, wait, I would rather be creating content about things that actually matter and things that make a difference because we don't have time really to talk about anything else. Like we have to expose in the big polluting industries. And if I'm going to create a video, why not create something that empowers people or calls out people or unites people? And then I just wasn't doing that where I was in house. So I quit February 26th of 2020, thinking I was going to go freelance and I get to work on my personal projects and then just like be on a bunch of sets, bopping around LA. And February 26th was like 3 weeks before COVID. So my mom's from Argentina. I had initially planned to take some time to travel before going freelance. So I was in Argentina when the world shut down.
Oh my gosh.
My dad called and I was like, it's fine. Like I'm here through June. I can like experience COVID in Argentina. I would rather be here than go back to LA where like I don't have a job or an apartment. Like I'm gonna hang here. And then obviously like every day it became more and more severe. This wasn't something that was going to pass in 4 months. You know, it was getting really intense. My dad calls me. He's like, I'm so sorry, but you should come home. And I caught the last flight. My layover was in Panama and I caught the last flight before Panama shut their airport.
Oh my
And so
gosh.
my amazing now husband picked me up from LAX, like, you're back. Thank goodness you're safe. You're okay. Like, let's get you in quarantine, but you're back. Like, you're okay. And I was sobbing, crying, like, I quit my job and I moved out of my apartment. What the hell am I going to do?
Right.
So for your question, content creation kind of found me because I was 28 years old, moved in with my mom, was like, frick, what am I going to do? Like, no productions were going on. Everything was canceled. All my friends who were in the video film space were like, dude, we're on unemployment. Like, nothing is going on. I'm like, okay, well, I love TikTok. I had one, but I saw such an opportunity to share content around sustainability, and it was an election year. So talking about climate action during an election year and the election, I was like, okay, I feel like I could just like create content about the things I'm passionate about. And I was living with my mom, and her house is like an eco kingdom. So I just started making videos, and as in like the early days of TikTok, it was very easy to go viral like overnight, and started gaining a following, and people were really interested, and people from all around the world were like, how do I talk to my parents about climate change? Or like, I really want to eat less meat, but how do I do it? Or how do I know if these politicians on the ballot, like if they're actually going to pass anything? It's like, oh, wow, I actually get to be a service instead of just like an entertainer. Get to be like a resource to the community, which has been really awesome. And I'm constantly humbled, and I'm constantly learning by the online communities as well.
Yeah, definitely. Well, that's amazing. It's interesting too, because I feel like TikTok specifically, and just like in general, the like content creation industry has a lot of people that are promoting, like a lot of influencers that are promoting like fast fashion. I feel like it's more known for being a place of promoting fast fashion. So I feel like I so rarely encounter people that are on TikTok or on social media and using their platform to really push that, more sustainable side of fashion and life, and any sustainability aspect to it. So I really love that that you're doing that, because I think that it's so few people that are really focusing on that more sustainable side of things. Because I'll be scrolling through TikTok and I'll see like, oh, like hashtag Shein haul, and I'm like, not interested. Yeah. So I really love like seeing your, content, because not only is it just like, oh, I could sit here for hours and learn from you about all things sustainability, but it's also just great that like also other people like are seeing, especially on TikTok with the algorithm being so insane. Like you could show up on anyone's For You page and inform them of something that they had no idea about. So totally. I love seeing your content.
Well, thank you for the acknowledgement. Thank you.
So as you mentioned, you recently got married. Congratulations. How is that so far? How's married life?
Everything's been awesome. The wedding, we got engaged in January. We didn't plan the wedding until April. And initially, like it's just so competitive too, or just so I was so unknown, like through the vaccine, because we essentially booked we booked our wedding venue after the vaccine was available, knowing like, okay, come September, the majority of our guests will have the vaccine, and we'll be safer to gather again.
Yes.
And my husband's sister is in medical school in Romania, and she only gets a couple weeks off every few years. And this year she was going to be in the States. And we're like, well, so it's the only time the families will actually get to all be together. So we have to seize the moment. So anyways, all to say, we were expecting like friction, or we were expecting like a few issues or things like that, just because of the state of the world and the state of the year. But everything went so smoothly, and I'm just like so in awe. The wedding was perfect, and it was like it's so cliche when people say it was the best day of my life, but it actually was like the best day of our lives, because it's just handpicked people who we wanted to be there, who had a lot of them had never met, and we like spent weeks making the playlist for our DJ to play, and everyone was dancing the whole time, and it was so awesome. And we're both vegans, we got to serve like a full vegan dinner, and like a lot of the stuff a lot of our decorations we had got at thrift shops, or like we had foraged a lot of the flowers in our community, and everything just felt like a huge reflection of us, and it was really awesome to get to bring our community into it.
That's amazing. Oh, I'm so happy for you. I know we just met, but I'm so happy that it was the best day of your life.
It was.
Even if everyone says it's a cliche, I mean, that just in general sounds amazing. And from seeing, pictures of it, it just looked absolutely stunning. So you mentioned a little about, some of the like sustainable aspects that you did for your wedding. Can you kind of dive more into like what you did to be sustainable during your wedding planning?
Yeah. I guess the first one was just keeping it local. Like we knew I'm from LA and
Mhm.
we went to college together here in Southern California. So the majority of our community is local here. So we knew to keep transportation down. We did have
Mhm.
a few family members and guests flying from New York or like I mentioned, Romania,
Mhm.
or even DC. Brooks has family in DC too, which
Oh
is
my
cool.
gosh.
Yes.
DC people, I love them.
Yes. But keeping things local. So we got married in LA and that was like I guess one of the pillars was keeping everything local, and
Mhm.
that way all of our vendors got to be local too, which was awesome.
That's amazing.
The big ones, like the big players, we found this amazing vendor. His name's Tommy. He runs a company called the Rolling Hero, and they do all staffing. So they provided like the bartenders and the servers and the setup and breakdown and like all of the people, like the power behind the event, and tables, all the rentals, tables, chairs, glassware, everything, and everything was super affordable, which is amazing because I feel like the wedding industry is so expensive,
Yeah.
like unnecessarily so expensive. I feel like it's honestly just businesses capitalizing on
Mhm.
the word wedding, you know.
Right.
Anyways, but the cool thing about Tommy is he shares a lot of the same sustainability values as us. So they sorted through, we try to make it as low waste as possible, just the event
Mhm.
in general. Obviously there was some trash, but the majority of it was recycling from like wine bottles,
Oh wow.
or like cans of LaCroix or like cans of sparkling water. And then we did kegs for beer, but there were glass bottles. And then there was like obviously food scraps from people's plates. But Tommy sorted through all the recycle and compost, and then we took it back to his facility to be properly recycled and composted,
Oh my
which is
gosh.
epic. So he's just a champion, and we're so grateful to get to work with him. And then the other big one obviously was food, because typically a wedding is a meal is served.
Mhm.
We worked with Senna Vegan, and it was a full vegan Mexican dinner. It was awesome. There was like tacos or plates, there's beans and rice. They make all of their protein from plants, and
Oh
like they
wow.
make it themselves instead of using like a meat
Mhm.
alternative. um, and they did like nachos and salsa and everything. And we got to work really closely with the owner of the company, and her name's Carmen. She's wonderful too. So I think those were the big ones, like low waste, plant-based, everything composted. We had some fun. You'd appreciate this, like with the fashion element or with the
Mhm.
apparel. I wore Brooks's mom's wedding dress from the 80s. Pretty
Oh.
cool. I worked well, I didn't work, but our local tailor, his name's Clemente. He's a rock star. The shop owner is Yelena. I met with them for like 2 months, and we like reconstructed this thing and like took the sleeves off and like put sleeves on the side and like took in the back and had to make it like really tight because we made it strapless. And they were just wonderful to work with. So I wore his mom's dress, which was
Oh
very
my
epic.
God. Not
Yeah.
only is that sustainable and amazing, but it's also like, it's like a piece of family with you
Yes.
on that day. That's amazing. I've
Yes.
always said my mom had a very like simple wedding dress and it was absolutely beautiful, but her and I do have very different styles.
Yeah.
I'm only 18, so I'm not planning on getting married for a while. But I've always said that I wanted to like use her dress because it is like simple and I can definitely work with it. And so I can have like, I mean, obviously
Yeah.
her, but also like a piece of her wedding day on my wedding day in the
Yes.
far, far future.
Yes.
And so I love that you also did that because I've always said I
Yeah.
wanted to do that. And so now I know it can happen. I know I can make
Yes.
it happen.
Heck yeah, especially you with your talents and skills and fashion too. Like that'd be such a fun project for you to like add things or change things. That'd be awesome.
Yes, I'm so excited for my wedding in 10 years so that I can
There you
upcycle
go.
my
There you
mom's
go.
wedding dress.
Yes.
But no, I love that you did that. I've literally always said that I wanted to do that. So like I love that I've met someone that now has taken that idea and done it. So I can grab inspiration from you.
There you go. Amazing.
So how long did it take to really make that switch? I know obviously like we're constantly learning. We're human. We're always going to mess up and we're not going to be like 100% of something. But how long like did it take that to make that switch to become almost fully sustainable?
Well, I think the beauty and sustainability is like there is no such thing as perfect,
Mm-hmm.
right? I guess the only thing that's like truly sustainable is like nature's
Mm-hmm.
systems. So even the fact that we have a word defined as waste, it's like, well, there is no waste in nature. Like everything is ultimately cycled. So like I'm looking at a tree right now, and when a tree would drop its dead leaves, that would ultimately become like a carbon rich nutrient that would then
Mm-hmm.
return back to the soil to help create healthy soil for something else to grow. It's like everything is cyclical. But because of us humans, how we have like established ourselves as superior over
Mm-hmm.
nature instead of recognizing that we're part of it, um there I don't think we could like reach perfect. I don't know if there is like perfection, right? But i think
100%.
i think there's finally been this like widespread um like hand in hand message within the sustainability movement, specifically sustainability creators who I love and admire. There's so much unity in the sustainability content creator
Mm-hmm.
space, which is really cool. So
Definitely.
you see more and more of these creators saying like, let's stop saying perfect sustainability, or even let's stop saying zero waste, because you can't act
Mm-hmm.
like there is no such thing. You can't actually be zero waste.
100%. Yeah.
And by doing so, you make the movement more inclusive by saying like there is no definition of perfect sustainability, just like there is no way to be like perfectly zero waste, because even if it doesn't end up in your trash can, how are you to know that like it didn't end up somewhere along the line of the supply chain
Right.
to get to you, you know? So I think you're right. Like we're always learning and growing. I think there's things that I used to be so hard on myself in the beginning of my sustainability journey. Like I think I just fed into that zero waste mindset, or that desire to be zero waste so much. And I was so hard on myself if I ever used like a single piece of plastic or like
Mm-hmm.
created a single piece of trash, and I would shame other people. I was like the worst. But now I'm like even today I was brushing my teeth and I use like a naturally derived organic toothpaste, but it happens to come in a plastic tube. And I'm like, man, I was thinking this morning, I used to be so hard on myself. I would never use toothpaste from plastic before. And now I'm like, okay, while I can contact this organization and ask them to package it in something more sustainable, like an aluminum tube, like
Mm-hmm.
some of the other toothpaste does, I also have to understand that like me changing my plastic tube of toothpaste, one person, like it doesn't even make a drop in the bucket, when I could instead use that energy and that effort to contact like these big petrochemical oil and gas companies who are manufacturing the material.
Mm-hmm.
Like, hey, change. And then that way every product has a sustainable option to package their
Mm-hmm.
product in, you know?
Yeah.
Because that's essentially what's happening. It's kind of crazy when you think about it. It's like big oil and gas companies are making plastic, right?
Mm-hmm.
Petrochemicals, and they're saying, okay, like products, here's your options to package your product in, your toothpaste, your body lotion, your food, your whatever. But if they changed and said like, okay, we're going to stop creating petrochemicals because we understand the extraction is terrible for the earth and the pollution is detrimental to humans, to wildlife, to our oceans, everything. And instead, here's like even this, here's a compostable package you can use instead that could
Mm-hmm.
ultimately return back into nature systems. There you go. Here's the alternative. And then
Right.
if you're like Joe Schmo with a toothpaste company, you're like, okay, of course, I'm going to start packaging it because it's price comparable. It's better for the planet, but it has to be up to like industry,
Yeah.
you know?
To have like a wider effect on everything. Definitely.
Yes. That's very different from the question you asked, but I hope that helps. Like there will never reach perfect,
Yeah.
and it
Yes.
can't ultimately lie on the individual.
Yes. Totally. Yes. Thank you. And just what you mentioned earlier used to like when I noticed a lot nowadays, like I have friends who have realized that I've made this like sustainable fashion switch. Even I was talking to my friend literally like right before this podcast, and she was like, "You're gonna die," but I bought from Nasty Gal. And I'm like, okay, well, I don't support Nasty Gal, and I would obviously love to convince you and educate you on why you shouldn't support Nasty Gal, but I'm not gonna like hate you,
Yeah.
obviously, for it. I would just love to like, sit down and have a conversation about like some things that Nasty Gal does that maybe I don't think that you would also support.
If you
Um,
knew.
Yeah. So I definitely like friends will be like scared to mention like fast fashion brands around me. And I'm like, I'm not gonna like shun you from existence.
Yeah.
I'm just wanna like tell you, educate you on the effect that, you know, brands like that have, or how easy it is to like kind of make that switch. Obviously, again, nobody's perfect. I mean, like I always try, I'm a sustainable fashion influencer, and I always obviously try to purchase, you know, secondhand or go thrifting or just rewear a garment until I possibly cannot wear it anymore, and then take the scraps from that garment and make a new one.
Yeah.
But I am not a perfect human being. And I definitely have shopped fast fashion in the past before I knew about everything. So I definitely related to what you said about like people, like you would be hard on people, lecture people about it. Cause I'm like, it's beneficial to at least, you know, educate them about it. Not, again, like I said, shun them from existence. But, you know, I feel like we are kind of in the minority being like, so the sustainable people. And it is a growing part of both the fashion industry and just all industries. But we are in the minority currently for, you know, being sustainable. So I always love like informing people so that they can also join our little minority so that we can become the majority.
Yes. I think, there's such a huge opportunity because like for me, I appreciate shopping secondhand, but I acknowledge and appreciate and admire how like someone like you who sees fashion as a way of self-expression and creativity, like the same way I feel when I'm like watching an environmental documentary and seeing all the different elements that made a film really beautiful. It's like we're just working with different mediums. It's the same way. It's like for you, you're still storytelling, you're still showing self-expression, you're still creating community. You can be like showing all this different representation through a piece of art that happens to look like a piece of clothing, you know. It's the same thing. It's like done through film or through like painting or through drawing, whatever.
Definitely.
But I think there's such a huge opportunity for someone like you who has like difference, because unfortunately, I think the reputation that sustainable fashion has is that it's just like simple, granola, ugly, like minimal, you know? And there is something to be said about that too. It's like, okay, if you have, maybe for some folks, you have a minimal styled wardrobe that you can accessorize, and like your pieces could actually last very long if you can like make it funky as times change and as trends come and go, but like your staple pieces stay the same. Then there's like ways for you to still have that sense of self-expression while like keeping your garments or your closet minimal. But I do think there is opportunity to break that stigma or break the reputation that sustainable fashion has to be ugly or simple or boring or like granola. With like more colors, or I think people just associate like the funkier it is, the less likely you are to wear it over and over, you know? Whereas one of the like roots or one of the like pillars of sustainable fashion is to, you know, have fewer better things and take very good care of it. But who has to say that only has to be like black, white, and neutral? No?
Right. No, I have, I always say like, I'm like, just because it's a sustainable item doesn't mean it's like made out of dirt. Or if it's made out of dirt, like like it's still like a fat, like I'm not just gonna like put like grass on my body. I mean, like maybe I will, you never know. But but like I'm not like, sustainable fashion is thrifting. That's how I always say thrifting is like one of the easiest ways to be sustainable in the fashion industry, because you're just reusing, like, I mean, I always say like one man's trash, or everyone always says one man's trash is another man's treasure. I didn't make that up, not me. But I do always say that because like I'll go to the thrift store and I just like cannot believe some of the things that people don't want in their closet anymore. And I'm like, are you kidding me? Like, I'll take that.
Right.
But I always love like if it's a funky piece that like maybe is currently on trend, I always try to find like multiple ways of wearing it. Like recently I went to LA Fashion Week, and actually everyone who's listening have a blog post coming out about that soon on sustainability. But they did a really great job compared to New York Fashion Week. But there was like this one dress that I bought on Depop, and it's super funky and it's made out of like fishnet tights or whatever. And I always wear it like as a shirt, or I wear it as a skirt, or I wear it as so it's like a funky item that, yes, is currently on trend, which a lot of people also say that like you can't be on trend and be like fully sustainable. But we just established that there is no thing as fully 100% sustainable. So I'm just doing my best over here, but I do love wearing like my funky pieces that are more on trend, or like won't last, I guess, like won't last me till like I'm like 50 years old. I try wearing them in like multiple different ways so I can get as much use out of them. And then if you don't want a funky piece anymore, whatever you do, don't throw it out.
Donate it, sell it. Yeah.
Give it to a thrift store, give it to Goodwill takes things. What's that? The Salvation Army. So many. What's that one in LA? I always take it there. Oh my God, it's like so trendy, and I am completely blanking on the name. Crossroads.
They buy it from you.
Yeah, they buy it from you. Or Buffalo Exchange. Yeah. So I'm like, there's ones that will literally buy the clothes that you don't want anymore. So whatever you do, just don't throw it out. Because one man's trash is another man's treasure. Anyways, on to the next question. So I was obviously stalking you on social media, as one does. And I saw that in your Instagram bio, you have, restore, regenerate, and reciprocate. Wow, words. So what are some things that you do on a day-to-day basis to restore and regenerate and reciprocate? And what do you really like? Is that like your thing? Is that what you want to like put out there? Is that everyone should restore, regenerate, and reciprocate?
That's good. Okay, so the name Ree Lauren comes from my first name, last name. Ree shows up in both places. Lauren Ferree. So I was like, and Ree shows up in a lot of sustainability buzzwords like refuse and reduce and reuse and repair, or like the iconic one, reduce, reuse, recycle. We all learned as school kids. So like, oh wow! As I was building my little like sustainable brand last year, I'm like, this is kind of a cute name. So I started doing that. But then as I was thinking, like, what are the powerful reads that make me feel connected to the climate movement? And I'd actually read this book called Braiding Sweetgrass, and it's by an Indigenous woman named Robin Wall Kimmerer. She talks about all, like I mentioned earlier, just connecting with nature as part of us and not separate from it, and not something that's superior from it, but like truly connected to it. And how in nature, everything is about reciprocity. So even with like a bird or a bee might go pollinate a flower and receive that nectar as nutrient and as fuel. But now that flower gets to go be pollinated to then produce fruit. And it's all about like everything in nature is about reciprocity, like something gives and something receives. And it's always about giving and taking back, reciprocating. And so I guess they're like my power words within the Ree Lauren branding is just how I want to present my work and how I want to show up as a person and as an activist and as just like a member of my community and as a part of nature to restore, regenerate, and reciprocate.
That's amazing. That's so smart. The Ree Lauren. I mean, I obviously like when I saw that, I thought of like, oh, like recycle, reuse, like all those classic things that we learned in like elementary school. But the fact that it's in your name too, like that's genius. Genius.
Yeah, I won't have the last name anymore. Rebash. But Bash is a great last name too, I will say. It's like a party.
It is. It's a fun last name.
Still on the first name.
Yeah. So talking more on the fashion side, what brands do you like to shop at to promote sustainable fashion?
Well, I think you hit the nail on the head earlier when you talked about thrifting. And my mom always raised us shopping secondhand. And part of it was definitely for environmental reasons, but part of it too was like my mom was a single mom raising 3 girls. And so from like a cost perspective too, obviously it was way more affordable to shop secondhand for 3 girls going like back to school shopping,
right?
Or whatever, holiday shopping, than taking us to a department store. So I've always been, and I've always had so much fun doing it. I know some folks don't like it. Yeah, I love it too. I like love the smell, and I love the like Easter egg hunt of it. You're like, oh, I found one. Like, my sisters love it too. So I love thrift. My younger sister is like the most talented thrifter I know. She has so much patience, and the stuff she finds, I'm like, how did you find that? It's insane. And she styles it so cute too. She's just like so talented. So anyways, we definitely grew up with that. And I will like scream that from the hilltops, is buy secondhand first and foremost, because it's already in the system. It's like already in existence, instead of supporting a company that's like more often than not extracting materials to make the new product. So I'm with you, sis, like thrifting 100%. There are a few brands. There's one I definitely want to call out. They're called 4 Days. I don't know if you've heard of them.
Possibly.
They're super cool. They're pretty small. I think they're a startup. But they use only organic cotton as their material.
Amazing.
So you know that there's not pesticides on the farm, and everything is ethically made here in the US. And they take back your, once you shop from them, you essentially have like a bag, and it's their take back bag, and they take your old 4 Days clothing and recycle it into new, because it's all organic cotton, so it can still be extracted or separated, and the fibers can be reused as new organic cotton material. I'm like, what? And they have zero restrictions, like stained, ripped, armpit stains, like coffee stains, whatever. They'll take it back and restore it or renew it into something new. I think that's so rad. And they have a full movement right now where they will take back any of your clothing from any brand of any material and do their best to separate the fibers and make it into new material, or like something like stuffing or padding or something where like fibers can be put together in a safe way. And I just love they're just an amazing organization, and they're super inclusive in all capacities. And I think they do it right. Like everything they do, I'm like, okay, you do it right.
Yeah.
So they're kind of the only company that I've bought something new from in a while. Everything else is from a thrift shop.
Yeah. That's amazing. I'm going to go follow them right now. No, that's insane. And yeah, thrifting, I mean, I know some people don't like it. Personally, I don't understand. like thrifting is like therapy for me. If I have a stressful week, and I know for some people it's like literally the opposite because you have to sift through all the clothing, but I'm like, no, like I will spend weeks at a thrift shop. If I could like sleep over, I would. I love thrifting. It's so therapeutic. It like takes all of my stress and anxiety away. I'm just like, what am I gonna do today? Go thrifting. And it's cheap. That's what a lot of people, this is actually has to do with what I was gonna ask you next. But so many people also associate sustainability with being more expensive. And while yes, of course, that can be true, because you're spending more money, but you're spending more money on like a quality garment. It's going to last you forever. Whether it's just like a white t-shirt or like whatever, it's going to last you forever. Because it has, that good quality, everything. It's made right. The people who are making it, hopefully, most sustainable people. I also see sustainability as not just like what the clothes is made out of. It's also, are the garment workers getting paid correctly? Are they working in the right environment? Is the brand inclusive and all that good stuff? So, if you're shopping from a sustainable brand, the people who are making it well, and they're getting paid well, and they're working in the right place, which is just overall amazing, and should be happening everywhere. But thrifting is always something I suggest when people will be like, oh, like, yeah, like I want to be sustainable and all, but like fast fashion is so much cheaper. And I'm like, well, you're paying for a cheap garment that was probably not made by someone who's getting paid enough, who is under terrible working, conditions. So you're paying for a cheap garment that's going to last you a day, and then you're going to throw it out, which is awful. So I always suggest thrifting. Obviously, we've already talked about why it's so amazing, but it's also cheap. I am a broke college student. I understand wanting new clothes. I'm a broke college fashion student. There is nothing I want more in the world than for my closet to be continuously new, filled with different clothing. And so thrifting is a great way of getting, well, not necessarily new, but new for you clothing that's cheap. So anyone who's a broke college student, thrifting.
There you go.
Thrifting. I eat, sleep, and breathe thrifting.
There you go.
So speaking about, more of like the money aspect of it, what are ways to, tell the fans, tell the listeners, what are ways to, be sustainable while also not spending too much money?
Yep. Well, earlier you had mentioned like sustainability isn't only about the environment, but also about the ethics. And so there's a fun definition. I learned this in like my first day of sustainability class, was the 3 P's or the 3 E's. And those are the easiest way to remember. But it's either people, planet, profit, the 3 P's, or ethics, environment, and economy. And so imagine like a 3-legged stool. And if one of the legs is too long or too short, it wobbles and it falls over, and therefore it's not sustainable. So with the environment, like, sure, it could be like H&M's conscious line, right? This is like the perfect example. They're like, oh, it's our conscious line. It's made with recycled materials or organic materials, whatever. It's like, but it's still made in a sweatshop where the majority of your workers are women, and they like can't see their family, and they're not paid a living wage,
right,
or they're not being paid, or they're working in terrible environments. Yes. So like, then it's actually not sustainable, because that 3-legged stool would like completely tip over because the ethics were being completely dismissed. So the same goes on the other end though too. Like if you look at Whole Foods or just organic food in general, great, it's amazing for the environment because maybe there's regenerative practices on the farm, or it's organic, so they're not using pesticides and like torching the soil. The farmers are paid well. It's environment. People, yes, like it would be better for public health, human health, if more people were eating organic, and we weren't eating the what's it called, glyphosate that's on pesticides. It's like torching the probiotics in our stomach, or the bacteria in our stomach. Yeah, it would be amazing for humans or people, the public, to eat organic, but it's not accessible and affordable to all. So like you hear organic, and some people are like, I could never afford that. And like, yeah, because it's a flawed system. Like then it's actually not a sustainable system. And how do you make it more affordable? It's like, well, you stop subsidizing the bad stuff from the government, right? The government like stops paying for corn, sugar, wheat, and soy from these like massive agriculture farmers. Anyways, so price, P, or the E, the 3 P's, the 3 E's, or the economy, plays a huge role in sustainability. And so unfortunately, you're right, it does get this bad rep that living sustainable or sustainable products are more expensive, but you already said it. It's fewer, better things that are made to last, that are taken really well care of. And I think the biggest one, especially like in fashion, in your space, it's like, wear what you have, or like shop your closet, or do a clothing swap, or borrow from friends, or rent. Like if you're going to use something for one time, why would you purchase something? You could rent a dress or rent an outfit. I guess I'm thinking of like all the R's, or all the R's. Another huge one too. Yeah. Use what you have. It's very exciting when you first start, when you're like, okay, I'm going to start reducing my waste, or I want to start reducing my emissions. You're like, okay, well, I have to get all of the sustainable shampoo and body wash and toothpaste and whatever. It's like, no, use up everything you have first. Right. And some might take you like years. You're like, I have to go through like a huge tub of dishwasher detergent or whatever. So it's going to take me a long time to use all of it, but I would rather use what I have and then switch to something new. So, and then reusing what you have. Like the one I tell people all the time is, we buy plastic containers of salsa. Like my husband loves this one brand of salsa, and it only comes in plastic. But now we don't buy Tupperware, because it's like a nice circular tub with like a big lid. And that's like what we pack our salad in, or like our granola or whatever. I'm like, this is our Tupperware, has become these reused salsa containers. But reusing what you have, like sharing what you have, taking care of what you have. And obviously taking care of what you have goes a lot longer when something was built to last. So you talked earlier about fast fashion. It's like, you're going to wash that shirt one time and it's never going to fit you the same.
Yep. Or there's going to be a hole in it, or there's whatever.
Exactly. But if you invest in a nice pair of jeans that could either be repaired, or like are less likely to shrink, or they're going to fit you for a long time. And if you have a hole in them, that's like made with a quality material that you could still fix it. It's not just like, and I think if you spend more money on something, or if you feel more connected to this purchase and it's not seen as something disposable like fast fashion or something else, like I bought it cheap, it's fine, you would not throw it away.
Right.
You know, you would take care of it to restore it.
No, definitely. Yeah, very all good tips. And even with like reusing the things you already have, this is more of the fashion side, but that's what I know. I like find it so fun to go through my closet and like, okay, I haven't worn this maybe in the past month or 2 months or 6 months or whatever. And why have I not worn it? Probably because I haven't styled it. I don't know what to wear it with, whatever. I haven't had anywhere to wear it. So I go through my closet, and I do this all the time. When I'm bored, I'm like, I'm just gonna plan outfits. Like, why not? Life as a fashion student. And I go through my closet and I pick out things that I haven't worn in a really long time. And then I literally just like spend however long styling it, finding a way that I would end up wearing it. And then I've re-fallen in love with the garment, or something that I wear literally all of the time. Like I mentioned, like there's this one really funky dress that I actually ended up wearing to LA Fashion Week, and I've worn it so many times. You've seen it on my Instagram everywhere. I'm a huge what's that Lizzie McGuire quote? It's like, Lizzie McGuire, you're an outfit repeater. I am a huge outfit repeater. But so I'll find something that I've worn a billion times, and technically it's like a bathing suit cover up, but I've worn it as a skirt, I've worn it as a dress, I've worn it as a top, I've worn it as a bathing suit cover. And I love just finding like a new way of wearing things. Like dresses can be worn as long skirts, or like a t-shirt. There was this trend that was going around on fashion TikTok for a while where people were wearing like wearing garments like the wrong way. And so they would wear like oversized jeans as a jacket. Like I love seeing things like that because there's so many new ways of wearing things. But anyways, that's just for using whatever's in your closet. If you are ever bored and just want something to do, go through your closet, find something you haven't worn in a while or something you wear too much, and find a new way of wearing it. Anyways,
I love that. I need to do that. I'm inspired by you. Maybe you can come down and help me with this. But I'm like, I love my pieces, but I feel like I consistently wear the same outfit over and over again. And granted, I work from home, so sometimes I'm like, okay, I really only just need like a nicer top, and then I'm fully wearing like yoga pants. I'm like, okay, that's fine.
It's whatever. It's on Zoom.
Like,
exactly. Who knows?
But like, come an event or come something, I feel like I panic because I'm like, okay, it's not work from home clothes. Like, what do I want? Or like, what do I want to wear? But I love all my pieces. I just don't. I feel like I'm not seeing them with like all of my options. You know.
I got you.
Yeah, okay.
I will literally come over and restyle you with all of the same garments that you've been wearing for years. I love doing that.
It's like on like my explore page on Instagram. I'm like, okay, like see who's styling things. And I'm like, I have that shirt. And I'm like, I have shoes that are kind of like that. So I could feel like I could like put something together.
Yeah, we can work it together. Yeah. So just to kind of finish off, what are some tips? What are your like most valuable tips that you would give to the listeners to become sustainable? If they are looking to start becoming sustainable or whatever, just your most valuable tips.
The first two that come to mind, I have three good ones. The first one is like, we have to educate ourselves, right? Because you don't have to go to school and be an environmental science major or like a sustainability studies student to understand the climate crisis. And I think, unfortunately, there has been a lot of gatekeeping when people are like, oh, I'm an expert, so therefore I'm the only person who can talk about this. And it's like, no, if you're literally a human breathing air, you're affected by the climate crisis. Yep. So you have credibility to speak about this and your experience. My favorite TED Talk ever says the best thing you can do about the climate crisis is talk about it. And so, but I think that comes first with educating ourselves as well. And like, what is this? And like, how is this affecting me? And how is this affecting other people in the world? And how bad is it really? And just like understanding. So I have a list, I can send it to you on my website. I just have a list of books or TED Talks or films or podcasts or things to just start like integrating with your rotation, I guess, of content and like creators to follow who are also educators, just to familiarize yourself more with this type of content. And I think everything is broken down in a super understandable, digestible way to be like, okay, I'm starting at ground zero or ground one, like where do we begin? And then the more you dive into sustainability, the more you're like, oh, there's sustainable fashion, sustainable food, sustainable building, sustainable like city planning. And you can just like find your avenue and dive in. So educating yourself. And then secondly is voting. And I think we all learned this a lot last year and 4 years prior. And now you're 18. So now you can vote.
Yes. Except I'm in I'm in LA, which is a very liberal place. So I not to talk about politics on the podcast, but I was like, I do wish that I had a vote in a place that like would do more of a, but I'm still gonna vote.
Yes. But that goes even outside of the presidential election. It goes into like, who is our assembly, who are our assembly people, and who are our state representatives? Because like, while I live in California, which like you said, might be a very progressive area where a lot of people are on the same page about the climate crisis, like my state representative is not. And I'm like, wow, what a cool opportunity for me to be in Orange and get to speak to her and her team about the oil spill.
Right.
And the oil spill as an environmentalist and just as like a human and how this is affecting us. So anyways, voting is huge. And I think just plugging into your local elections and state elections and just learning who are the people who are supposed to have your back. Like we talked about the 3 players, people, government, and business. So making sure that the people who are representing you are like actually representing you. And they do that by listening.
Yes.
And then lastly, like I mentioned, just talking about it. So talking about it with friends, and like, like I said, you don't have to be an expert to talk about it. So, hey, I'm like, and coming at it, like zero judgment or zero, not to say like, you don't have to have fear, but just coming at it, like zero expectation. Like I want to make a difference and I don't know where to start, or like talking to your friends about it. Like what I'm learning more about the climate crisis, right? I hear that COP26 is happening next month in Scotland. And I think it's this big conference where like a bunch of world leaders are coming together and talking about climate change. Or I saw the IPCC report, like, have you guys dove into this? And someone might be like, I read an article, or like I was talking to my mom, and just like integrating it into your conversation, because ultimately this is like the fight of our generation and all future generations.
Yes.
So we have to break this stigma that you have to be an expert to talk about it, or you have to know all of the answers to be part of the solution, because it's not it. So just like normalizing talking about it,
Yeah.
And finding your own testimony, your own story within it, and being like, I'm a young person, I'm 18. And if I choose to have children down the line, this is going to be the future that they inherit, let alone like we're in LA, like wildfires are happening so much more than they have in the past. And there's actually another article, I'll send it to you. The New York Times, or I don't know who did it actually, but they showed if sea levels rise at the rate that they are, like images of major metro areas around the world, what it would look like Miami is completely underwater.
Yeah.
And just shows you. So you're like, okay, as someone living in a coastal town of California, like this is how sea level rise will affect me. And therefore I have credibility to speak about this.
Right. No, definitely. Thank you. Definitely. Where can everyone find you on social media?
Well, like I said, Lauren is my fun little brand. I felt I go by Lauren on Instagram and TikTok. And that's my website too, relauren.com.
Okay, perfect. Well, thank you so much for coming on with me today. I literally had an amazing time speaking with you. I feel like personally, I have learned so much more just from speaking with you. So I hope that the listeners have as well. Don't forget to follow Lauren on all of her socials. And while you're at it, you can follow me as well. My Instagram, YouTube, and TikTok are all Lexy Silverstein. That's my name, LEXY, silver like the color, STEIN. And remember to make the ordinary extraordinary.